Welcome to the beginning of what's probably gonna be a 45-minute video. Currently in the car with Whitty Dad. Hi, Whitty Dad. And some Whitty horses. You can't see them. Yes, you can. Yesterday was the official release of Restore Me samplers. And I already read it, of course. Last night people posted it on the internet and your girl couldn't wait. So your girl was there. But today I'm off work and tomorrow I'm off work. So I have the time to have an emotional collapse. Therefore, we're currently en route to Barnes & Noble because that's where they have been released. I'm just gonna pick one up. We're gonna talk about it. I've already read it, so I'm prepared for it, but at the same time, I'm not prepared for it. You know what I mean? The goal is to get a few and then, okay, I'm a jerk. I really want to get the box they're in. Is that rude? I think I'm gonna ask and be like, listen, do y'all have an extra box? Because they come in like this, I'll show you. They come in like this container thingy that Tahada posted on Twitter. I need it for my bookshelf. Do I ask if I take it? Do I just take it? Is that rude? Like if there's none left, I'm just gonna take it, but we shall see. Am I the worst? I'm that one customer. Okay, we'll update soon. We're losing light, so this might not be a very great vlog, but you know, Restore Me is worth it.
We get out and go.
We out here. Y'all get out. This is the most important moment of my life, except for several other moments and more important moments of my life. The smell of Bookstore in the morning. It's not morning, it's 5 p.m.
Is your Barnes & Noble as cool as mine? I think not.
I've been just shoving them in my purse, which I think looks suspicious, but you know, you gotta do what you gotta do. Okay, low key, this comes off, so I'm just like, did we take the whole thing? Is that rude? I'm such a jerk. I'm taking the whole thing. I left sample here. I'll show you so that I don't look like a horrible person. I left some. They're cute, they're beautiful, but at the end of the day, your girl's a Shatter Me addict, and I had to take the whole box. I'm so sorry, Barnes & Noble in Southlake, Texas, but you know what a girl had to do. They had a table of bargain YA books I didn't even get a chance to look at because I was so distracted. I swear security's gonna start chasing after me soon. I don't need it. I don't need it. I don't need it. Tell everyone what you just did.
No.
He just sat there for 30 seconds with the woman who checked us out. It was like, did you know she's a New York Times best-selling author? But he couldn't remember the book title, so he couldn't tell her anything else. And there were people in line.
Because you love to hate me.
Yes. I can't go out anywhere with you, especially bookstores. But I got the goods! I was seriously, I know I look like a jerk taking it, but I don't regret it. It's gonna look so good on my bookshelf. Thank you, baby. I love you. Disclaimer, I didn't take all the samplers in the box. I took 3 and left the other like 15 on the shelf. You know what? It's a once in a lifetime thing. I'm not gonna take every box at every Barnes & Noble. They were gonna throw it away anyway, so I just figured I'd take it off their hands for them. So we went to another location of Barnes & Noble because we're nuts. My dad was bragging about me as per usual, embarrassingly, and the woman asked if I wanted to sign a copy. So I'm gonna do that. I feel like some random person's gonna pick this up and be like, who? That's not Christine or Jesse. What, do I think of a tagline? Like, what do I do? Should I just sign it? Just sign it? Okay. Oh, this Sharpie's like almost out.
This by dividing both sides by that, which is the same as multiplying
Okay,
that
that's
side.
all. I felt like I didn't deserve to sign that copy because it's technically mine and 23 other people's, but you know what? I'll sign it. Whatever. This girl's walking by judging me, oh my god. Location number 3, because we're freaking stupid. At this point, we're not even looking for samplers. It's just a good time going to bookstores. Book smell.
Wanna get one?
I loved him. This is my happy place. I could just walk around here for hours. I'm not even bored, and this is the 3rd store we've been to 50% off. Hello? This book just gave me a heart attack. I thought Restore Me was out on shelves. Whoever Danya Kufta is, you played me. If you look up the phrase, a bad idea, in the dictionary, there's quite possibly a picture of me filming a Restore Me Theories video at 11 p.m. at night. Everyone's asleep. I'm gonna be yelling, it's a bad idea, but you know what? Warner never sleeps, neither do I. So we're gonna do it. So like you just saw, I did some damage. I thought that clip was a little bit too short to have by itself, and I did want to do a reaction to the sampler, so that's what we're gonna be doing. Let's talk. If you don't know, Restore Me is the 4th book in the Shatter Me series, so this is definitely going to contain spoilers. This is just the first 30 pages of the book. That's Warner's and Juliet's perspective. It expands on the world. I don't know why I'm explaining it. You're probably watching this because you've read it, but let's just go. My first thing I want to talk about is the title itself, Restore Me. I've theorized for a while, like, okay, what's being restored? Me. I'm being restored, that this series exists even more than it already did. Now that this has come out, just so many new things have accumulated and thoughts are spinning in my head, and I'm realizing, as far as the title Restore Me, it means so many things to me now. They're restoring peace back to their sector, and they're restoring the community and making sure everyone's happier and they have resources and housing and they're not in the compounds anymore. They're just restoring justice back to the country. But beyond just like the physicalities of the community, I think with the characters are being restored. Specifically, I want to like focus on Warner, and like Warner's gone through all this trauma. Now he's being restored, and he finds that being with Juliet is therapeutic, and it's just so sweet. So that's how I feel about the title. I'm just gonna go through the rest of the sampler chronologically. There's no chapters, which I'm not as mad about as I thought I'd be, but it's still a little awkward to not be able to refer to things. So let's just go. First and foremost, Juliet, the growth of my woman. I don't know a better woman. She is the mother I never had, the friend everyone deserves, and everything in between. Just the fact that she takes no crap from anyone. She's just so ruthless. Like, she gets stuff done and doesn't care what people think. Like, boy, I was so ready for this book and so ready to see that, and it did not let me down. Also, Kenji referring to Warner as your boyfriend. It's so surreal, but so cute, and I'm deceased, clearly. I just like, it's so unreal to me that it's been in my head for so many years, and now it's on paper, and he says it, and I'm just like, sounds fake, but okay. The entire first scene just seems so unrealistically hyperbolic to me. Like, even rereading it after getting more material, I'm just like, this is nuts. And I can't tell if it's me being like, it's been so long since I've read a Shattery book, like is it actually weird, or is it just me thinking and like in my head like this is fan fiction? I can't tell. It's so difficult for me to read it just because I'm just like disoriented by it all, but it's still such a blessing. The first time that I read that snippet that was first released of just the buzz cut, and it ends with the welcome to my life as the leader of Sector 45, or the reestablishment, whatever, I was pretty upset with it. It took me a long time to realize like the buzz cut was a real thing, and I was mad about it, and it just seemed so unrealistic to me. But I think that after this released and you see why and you see everything behind it, I was like, okay. Which is also funny because I was sitting there before this sampler came out, and I was, we made our list, like, okay, why did Kenji give Warner a buzz cut? He's got cancer and Warner shaved his head out of solidarity, making lists of like the worst case scenario. And in the end, it was just, he thought it would be a nice gesture. And with that one thing, I was just like, okay, you're right. Like, I accepted it. So I freaked myself out over nothing. It's fine. I'm fine. Also, just the name calling back and forth between Warner and Kenji. I love it. Just the relationship between Kenji and Warner is just gonna grow and prosper into everything that I've wanted it to be for years. Side note, every time that Warner calls someone an idiot, there's a very specific way in my head he pronounces idiot, and I can't quite say it. In my head, he's so articulate, and he just says it with the sass of 1,000 suns and just like idiot, like pronouncing the T with like finality. I don't know why I'm going on and on about this, but I love him. I used to dread the buzz cut scene. I was like, there's no way I'm gonna read this book, because I've said in videos before, one of my biggest pet peeves in book is when characters get haircuts in the middle of a book and I have to reimagine them. But I'm not mad about this one, and it's probably just because it's Tahara and she could literally do anything, and I would be like, it is so good, bless you, I give it 5 stars. But in this one, whenever he was going into the explanation of why he did it, and then we later have the chapter of him like actually shaving his head while in his panties in the mirror. God bless America, all the beautiful men in it. I was sitting there just like, this isn't some like stupid prank that Kenji did, so I'm not as mad about it. It has this reasoning behind it, and you realize as he's shaving his head, it's like this physical shedding of a part of him, and he called it cathartic, and it was. So I feel like since there's that meaningfulness behind it, it's not anything that's upsetting to me anymore. I used to get so upset. I was like, Warner's bald, 2018's canceled, we're not doing this book. I'm not gonna read it if Warner cuts his hair. But actually reading it, for like the first 2 seconds it hurt, then I was like, oh, but it means something to him, and it's like shedding a part of himself, and he's trying to get rid of it. Could be worse. So it's fine now. The one thing that's not fine though is he then calling himself hideous. What is this fake news, and why did we not leave it in 2017? Who does this boy think he is calling himself hideous? Does he know he has thousands of fans? Does he know I exist? It's just not realistic. I mean, I say that sarcastically, but yeah, that line hurts. Part of that nags at me is that during that scene and later on when he goes and says, well, I'm gonna go shave my head now, hope you still love me when I get back, there's something about that made me stop and think like, and it was the fact that whenever that happens and he says that, Juliet never steps back and goes, no, I love you, you're beautiful. I think it's just my reaction. I want to be like, no, you're so beautiful, I love you, nothing's gonna happen, that would never make. But I was waiting on Juliet being his cheerleader and being like, no, you're beautiful, like, don't, this is a tiny thing, and she never does. She just kind of like, that sucks, bye. This is again one of the things that I'm gonna have to do is I've built up so many expectations in my head, and I've written so much of their future in my head and how I would expect them to act that I'm having to now unravel those expectations and go back to, okay, Tahada's gonna write this how she feels fit to, and I have to let my expectations go and just roll with it. So I think that's one of the things that I'm having to like take a breath and let it go. She's not always gonna be positive, happy 100% of the time telling him he's beautiful and she loves him every single page. But that also goes along with my idea that I thought this book was gonna be cute and happy for a little bit, because at the end of Ignite Me we have Warner saying things like, I've never felt this happy before, I'm content, I don't know what to do with myself because I just feel so much for you. They're holding hands and he's like being flirty with her, and I'm like, this is gonna start out and be everything that I've wanted it to be, and before that tragedy strikes that we hear about in the synopsis, everything, it's gonna be perfect and beautiful. And literally on like page 3 he's like, I'm sad, I'm losing weight, nothing's good in the world, and I'm just like, excuse me? I have to undo everything that I've built up about preconceived notions of what their life would be like after this war, and it's hard. But one of the things that I did sort of predict and that I've made text posts about is now that Juliet and him are together, he's gonna have to start being nicer to people. He's gonna have to tolerate her friends, and that was one thing that it made me so happy to have that, see that conversation where she's like, I like that you're trying to be nicer, and he's like, that's not really gonna happen, and she's like, but you're trying, I love you. It's so wholesome, it's everything I wanted, and I have no complaints. This many complaints about it, none. And then Mrs. Moffy just pulled the dirtiest joke on me. She has them leaning toward each other and parting their lips, and I was sitting there like, okay, this is it, this is the time, we're gonna have them kiss for the first time in 4 years, my worn out heart cannot take it, this is the best day of my entire life. And he breaks away to go, gotta go shave my head. I was hollering. That was so cruel. I was so ready for it. It didn't have they even kissed yet in this sample? I don't think they've even kissed at all. I'm still waiting. It still hurts. There's still a gaping wound that needs to be filled. But I needed an inhaler. There was that line where she was thinking back on the memories they've had together, and there was a line that says, his sharp gasps for air. This video is gonna get demonetized because of that sentence alone. I needed an inhaler. That's too much. There was this line that said, we've done memorials for people who've passed away in the war, and that kind of touched on something that, I know it's a tiny line, here I am analyzing every single freaking line in the book, but it touched on something that I've thought about for a while, which is, I always wondered if Warner's parents ever got a memorial. I'm sure for Anderson, like, what do you do? Ding dong, the witch is dead, good news. But as far as Warner's mom, okay, there's two things. One, there's a part of me that's like, we didn't see a body, she's not dead, but like, it's been confirmed in dialogue, so whatever. But also, would there have been some sort of memorial service? I feel like Juliet would have encouraged him to have some sort of closure for that, and I guess not, but that was always something I'd wondered about. So hearing that line about, oh, we did memorials for the dead, I'm like, tell me more. Tell me more, tell me more. Did you bury your mom? And just going further into her talking about, now that she's Supreme Commander, she's expecting all this is gonna happen, much like I've been expecting half of this book to go a certain way and then it doesn't. But she's saying she feels like people should have fought back by now. I just want to mention that the way that the war and the build-up to this communication with international leaders is being written is so different than how I imagined, but still so cool. I had said in my previous theory video, I want to know if we're going to meet international leaders. Primarily, I was focused on, okay, so if she becomes the leader of this country, obviously the country is gonna revolt. I thought that it would focus on that. It's just jumping right into international politics, and I'm like, this is a slap at all the people who have said that Shatter Me does not have world building, because we're about to go so hard with world building, I can tell. And more than that, it's just like the fact that she's talking about everyone's playing a mind game with her, all these people aren't responding to her message, and the RSVP she does get is really weird. And the mind game aspect of it, that's so clever and intriguing and different than I thought it would be, and I don't know, like, I didn't think that this book would be predictable at all, but the fact that it's just throwing so many curveballs already, I'm like, how? I used to be so scared I wasn't gonna like it, and I read stuff like this and I'm like, it has me captured. Nothing is how I would expect it to be, and I'm ready for it. Another thing I noticed right from the start is Castle. Castle, my prediction, I'm just saying this right now, Castle is going to be the main MVP of this series, or especially in this book, I predict. Already Castle is just everything we need and more. He's Juliet's cheerleader. He says he's the person who's trying to get Adam and Juliet to be on the same page and to make up just so that it's not awkward anymore. And he's the person that raised Kenji, and he's closest to Kenji. We're gonna learn more about that side of him. And he's just everything. Like, he's so supportive, he's so generous, he's so smart. He calls Warner Mr. Warner, and it's so cute. Madam Supreme and Mr. Warner. Someone make me a meme or a graphic or something I can reblog. It's gonna be so cute. I love Castle already just in these 30 pages, and I predict he's gonna be one of the most loved characters by the end of the series, which probably means he's gonna die, so I'm not even gonna start who I think is gonna die, but I just automatically want to say Kenji, because kill off a fave but not like a main fave. So like Warner and Julia, I feel pretty safe. Kenji's kind of, he could go. James, again, he's loved, but he's not the most important, so he's one of those characters that could probably go. Why am I getting off on that tangent? That's for later books. I'm hoping no one dies until book 6, so we're not gonna worry about it till then. Okay, now going on to Warner's perspective. I think the main thing I go back to every time I think about Warner's perspective is we haven't seen Juliet from Warner's perspective since 2012, since Destroy Me, since he saw her in a dream, and that's about all we've seen of her. And now we get to see her, and we get to see his love for her, and see how he's a changed person. At least that's what I said before this. I've made posts talking about, okay, Warner's perspective, we're gonna see all this new material from his eyes, he's gonna be happy, we're gonna be able to see him happy from his point of view. And then he's not. He's just emo and bald. But still, there were parts that did fulfill my desires. Like, she walks in the room and he looks at her for the first time and says she's so beautiful and her eyes are so wide and kind, and I'm like but one of the things that I was looking forward to that hasn't happened yet, that I'm just, if this doesn't end up being a big part of this series, I'm gonna be so disappointed. She's gonna get some tweets is, since he can feel other people's emotions, I was like, he's gonna talk about that so much and go into like what she's feeling and how he perceives that. And so far we haven't had him talk about anyone's emotions and picking up on that. In my head, I envision a scene where like he walks into a room with Juliet and he feels that she's feeling this certain way. He asks her about it. Like, I want him to acknowledge that he can feel what she's feeling. I think that's just like a crucial part of the relationship. And so far nothing, so Tana, don't let me down. But just the scene where he comes to bed and she snuggles up to him is genuinely the focus of my fan fiction. Is just them cuddling. Like, that's all I've ever wanted, is just the soft, gentle, wholesome being together. That's all I needed. This one scene, even though Warner is emo and bald, everything. It's everything. The book could have ended after that one paragraph, and I just, everything is so perfect. Like, that's all I need. It's all I needed. I've been briefly mentioning how Warner's emo now, and I don't know if that seems like I'm just kind of saying it flippantly, but in reality, the first time I read this preview, I was super let down that I was expecting that Warner would be so happy and he's finally found his place and he's so in love with Juliet. And then he ends up being very distraught and has emotions about guilt and things he wasn't expecting because of his father. And the first time I read it, I was really upset about that. But now that I've reread it a few times and I annotated it and I let it simmer, it's such a complex and well done mindset. And there's already so much depth to this that I wasn't expecting that's still to be explored. Because like I said, this is just throwing curveballs at me and I didn't expect that it would be so different than how I imagined it. At first I was terrified of where this emotional dark side to him would go. But then I realized it's such a smart way to do the series, because the biggest thing I was scared of was, since Ignite Me seemed to have ended on this note that was everyone's happy, they found their place, Juliet and Warner together, he's found this calmness with her, I was unsure of how it would be when they throw them back in that dark, deep waters. What you thought was the end of the series is actually the very middle of a series, so I didn't know if it would fall off a cliff and be crap, or if she would be able to take where that was and organically twist it into something that keeps building on their characters. And I think that she's grasping it well, and that was probably my biggest fear, is what if this is so out of character that I can't stand it and I have to not read the series or something happens. But I can genuinely say I think the way that she's handling Warner, and the fact that I think he calls it this state of like half grief. I never even considered it before, but it's so right for him. And it also adds this compelling side to it, because the only thing that can help cure this is relating to someone who's also going through that, and the only other person going through that is Adam. And I've always said it would have been such a cool plot point if Adam had been the one to save Warner's mom, because the person he hates the most in the world is the only person that can disable his mom's power and thus like make her live a better life, or at least while he's touching her, you know? So that balance of this person that you despise, that you have this history with, that you've almost killed before, is the person that's going to help you heal and is going to add positivity to your life. The fact that she could squeeze that plot into this book, and it's literally exactly what I was wanting and looking for. How does she know? But I don't think his sadness is forced at all. I don't think it's unrealistic. I think my first impulse was to say, of course he's sad. Of course, like, I don't want this to happen. This is so crappy. I wanted this to be happy. But reflecting on that, it's such a real place for him to be mentally. And I think exploring that and talking about it with Adam is gonna be really beneficial. But the one thing that I'm worried about is the fact that he keeps hiding his emotions from Juliet, and he keeps saying, like, she would walk into the room and he says, oh, I assume nonchalance. And there's a part of that that's like, okay, is he hiding his feelings about his dad from Juliet, or is this leftover self-consciousness and packaging up his emotions and hiding all of his emotions, because that's what he was trained to do his whole life. And that's again another thing that first when I read it, I was like, this is horrible. I just read The Becoming of Noah Shaw, where they were lying to each other the entire book, and there was such an imbalance in their relationship, and it was horrible. And now I'm getting to this and he's lying to her and hiding his emotions, and I don't want to go through that again. I want the honesty. I want them having a discourse between them about what's going on in their lives. And now I'm realizing that might not even just be Warner hiding things from her. That might be 20 years of hiding himself. Like, literally one of the plots in this is his mom telling him at 6 years old, hide your heart and he won't be able to find it. Like, he was trained to be emotionless. I can't be mad about that, you know? And it's very reassuring when I remember things like that, because my first instinct is to just think, I don't want this to be bad. This is scaring me. I want them to be able to talk to each other. But then it's gonna work out in the end, Whitney. It's gonna be fine. She knows what she's doing. There's one line in this that's driving me nuts. He's talking about his father and the death of his father, how that's affecting him. And he says, the last words I ever spoke to my father, then there's a dash and it's cut off. Bitch, what'd you say? Like, what did he say? This is like that time where he told Juliet and Unravel Me, a handful of letters doesn't always make a word. And for years, I was like, what? What's the acronym? What do those words mean? And now, I'm back in that place of there's cliffhangers and hints and just I want to know. And It's been so long since I've felt the feeling of there's information about the Shatter Me world that I need to know and I don't know, that I need to know but I don't, and it's causing me a lot of stress. Going back a little bit to talking about Warner's emotional state, I think that for a long time I thought, okay, if it's dual perspective, that means one of them's gonna die or they're gonna get separated. But as I was reading this sampler, I was like, it actually makes sense that it's dual perspective, and it seems like it's not going to be anything like there's danger and that's why the dual perspective is needed. I think that the emotional side of them explaining where their headspaces are is what's most important at this point. Whereas I used to be terrified, oh, the only reason that we're getting both perspectives is because one of them is gonna die. I don't really think that anymore. I think we needed Warner's perspective to be able to see all the things that he can't tell Juliet, because the only person that can relate to that, once again, is Adam. So the reason why we're getting both perspectives isn't because anyone's in imminent danger, which they are. It's the continuation of a series. Someone's gonna die soon. But I really do think that we're just given this as the flip side to Warner's brain, because for so long we're stuck in Juliet's mind. And I think being able to see Warner's turmoil is going to be really important to the audience, and not so much like she's pandering now to Warner stans who love him and want to know what's happening in his head and get things from his perspective, but there's so much that we don't see from Juliet's mind, and I think now that we're getting to see international people that Warner knows, he can give us insides and memories about that we would never be able to, like, Juliet is naive on behalf of interacting with all these international leaders and the sons and daughters of those leaders. So Warner's perspective is crucial to understanding the backstory of the world building. Okay, moving onward, let's talk about Brendan and Winston. There's just this one little paragraph from Juliet's perspective that talks about Brendan and Winston sitting together eating breakfast, but it says they are inseparable, and I called it. I freaking called it. I've been saying for years that Brendan and Winston are such a power couple. They love each other. Brendan's our bisexual king. What can I say? It's gonna happen until one of them dies. Also, just the fact that Juliet and Kenji have a routine of eating breakfast and taking a walk. Everything I wanted and more. Everything. At this point, I'm just telling you all the fan fictions that have been in my head that I haven't written, and I'm revealing how much I've thought about Shatter Me in a very non-normal way. But I had this vision in my head of, like, after the war when Julia isn't hiding in the rooms anymore and they don't have to live in Warner's basement anymore, going downstairs and eating together for the first time, and everyone's sitting next to each other, and it's calm, cool, and collected, and everyone's friends, and we knit a blanket. What's the Mean Girls quote about living happy together? I don't know.
I wish that I could bake a cake made out of rainbows and smiles, and we'd all eat it, be happy.
She doesn't even go here. I was waiting for that, and the fact that we have it, again, my soul is fulfilled. My acne is cleared, my crops are watered, my anxiety is cured. But on the flip side of that, we get into this discussion that is new to me, and I think there's several parts of this book that revealed new Warner information that just shook my world, shooked it. The first being that Juliet says Warner doesn't enjoy food, it's just another task to him. This is my new problematic fave, Warner, because he doesn't enjoy food. But it's also sort of disappointing because it goes into one of those expectations that I had that goes along with, now that Juliet and Warner are together, she's gonna be his cheerleader, she's gonna inspire him to have self-love and self-care, and he's gonna get more sleep, and he's gonna eat right, and he's gonna work less, and no. I don't know if this is something they're gonna keep working on, but the fact that Juliet notices how much he just treats eating and food and something that should be fun and happy, and he just eats a cookie with a knife and fork. I hope that we see some development and progress there, because the fact that Adam asks where he is at breakfast and Devilou and him just drinking their bitter old black coffee, I'm just wishing we see progress there as far as Warner coming around to wanting to be social at meal times. And I feel like that's a good place for development, is seeing, oh, look at him, his favorite foods, and So now we get into another big part of this that I've seen controversy about, so hopefully Shatter Me stans don't drag me, but you know, nothing stops them. Adam. In the 4 years that Ignite Me has been marinating in my head, I've been really reconsidering how I feel about Adam, and that's sort of fueled by my rereads of the series and annotating it and really letting it sink in. And here's where I arrived at. Rereading Shatter Me, I cannot bring myself to appreciate Warner. I've sort of disconnected book 1 Warner from the rest of the series just because he reaches such a low depth that he's sort of irredeemable for me. Barely. Because clearly we're here. On the opposite end of that, Adam in that book is so important, and I think people read Ignite Me and they forget everything that happened in Shatter Me. And I get people can still criticize it for, oh, it was insta-love and Adam might not be their favorite character ever for her, but I've found that I can't deny the impact that Adam had on her life. He is the first person that ever tells her, you deserve to live, you deserve freedom, you deserve to be loved, you deserve to love other people. Nothing people have said about you is true, you're perfect, you don't deserve anything that's ever happened to you, and I want you to be able to live. And those are important words for her to have heard, because we're hearing Warner say similar things, saying like, you're powerful, you can do anything you want, but that's sort of on a different spectrum, because she doesn't respect him, and she's terrified of him, and she thinks that he's threatening her, I guess. So I think that Adam really played this vital role in her life of awakening her to see that she deserves justice and she can fight back for the good reasons. The fact that he was just dragged through the mud in Ignite Me, like, I don't agree that he just went off on this antagonistic path, because I feel like it wasn't needed. Their relationship could have dwindled organically, and it didn't need that cruel, unnecessary hostility to it that I still, to this day, like, every time I read Ignite Me, I just get really disturbed that, yeah, I hate him, he says some gross things, and they are realistic in the moment, but then I sit back and think, like, if they're not right for each other, they're not right for each other. It didn't have to go to that extreme to prove that one of them's better than the other as far as which boy should Juliet pick. So I've always been a little bit crunchy about Adam. For the first few years after Ignite Me came out, I was loved to hate him. But now I'm not so much in that anymore. Like, of course I'll still be like, he said horrible things to her, that's unforgivable, he's a jerk. You know, it's fun to drag him. But at the same time, I'm not mad about a redemption arc in this book. I'm not mad about him becoming friends with Juliet again. I'm gonna back up. I'm not mad about him becoming friends with Warner. I want Juliet to roast him a little bit more, and I want him to have a way better apology to Juliet for saying the thing that he said. But yeah, I'm not mad about a redemption arc, and I wouldn't be upset to see it. That goes along with one of the main things I love about Juliet, and a character trait that's inspired me for years about Juliet, is she owes Adam nothing, and still when she sees him in the cafeteria and she sees that he looks horrible, she still goes out of her way to say, what's up? What are you okay? And Warner does the same thing. So she's rubbing off on him. I'm so happy. I wouldn't be angry if they brought him around to being civil again. Of course, we would need a better apology, more explanation of what happened. But like, I used to say, oh, Adam should become a villain. But really, he could be indispensable as a team member to them. Can you imagine if he learns to project his power and disable every power in a room? How powerful, how great that would be to protect everyone? I don't know, I just feel like he could be a part of their team, and even though he's done really horrible things, I don't think that he's beyond the reach of a good apology, you know? Anyway, now that you've unsubscribed, let's move on. Going back to that character trait of Juliet's that I love, how she's just so caring about people and optimistic, and she sees the best in people. Love that about her. I've loved that about her. It's inspired me for years, and I think about it every day. That's one of the reasons why I wear my Warnet bracelet, because it's a reminder of like being good to people. There's a conversation she has with Castle where he's asking like, you got this RSVP from Oceania, like what did they say? We'll talk about Oceania in a sec. I've got stuff to say. And she gets this RSVP and it just says, can't wait to see you. And she's like, yeah, they're coming over, it's gonna be so great, we're gonna meet them. And Castle's like, dude, this is scary stuff. Her naivety and the fact that she's just so optimistic about everything, I think is gonna have to really be challenged in this book. And Warner has said in previous book, learn how to shoot first because it's an unforgiving world. And I think Warner's ideology is gonna have to prevail here. In the synopsis, it says Juliet has to challenge herself to see if she can think differently and act differently and hurt people now. And I think that majorly comes from this, is she thinks she's dealing with diplomatic people, and Warner says they're not diplomatic people, they're not going to work with her. He has to warn her about them. So I think it's going to be interesting to have to see her be awakened to that. They're going to have that conversation, and she's going to have to realize, I can't be this giving, kind person when I'm dealing with people who literally want to destroy the earth and subject the people to misery just that they can live large. And it's gonna be painful to see that. I don't want to see Juliet like lose her moral compass, because one of the major things I've said is I don't want her to become a villain. I don't want her to lose herself, which I don't really see so far in this, but I don't want her getting hurt as well. And that's kind of this scale that we have, is does she lose that empathetic side of her just so that she can make sure she stays alive, or should she retain that side of her and put herself in danger and stay naive? And you know, I'm worried about my girl. Every time that something happens, I'm like, do not touch her. She is beautiful and gorgeous and doesn't deserve a single fingerprint on her. She has gone through too much. We've gone through so much to be here, and you cannot hurt her. Now we're gonna talk about Delalue, because Delalue roast me once more. I know Delalue's supposed to be this dude that didn't care about his daughter, and he's sort of skeevy and shaky and doesn't care about anyone. He is precious and I love him. I have said since the beginning he's the #1 Warnet shipper. He's just the sweetest little old man. I just want to hug him, his little twitchy mustache. He's so beautiful. And like Warner keeps saying like, I'm an orphan. I have no one that cares about me. But then he has this breakfast meeting with Delalue and they're like daintily sipping their coffee, having a great time. I'm just like, really? You're gonna ignore your own grandpa in the room with you? Okay. But I just think Delalue is so sweet, and I really want to see a fleshed out relationship between Delalue and Juliet. I've written a fan fiction before with Delalue and Juliet because I just think the dynamic between all three of them is going to be so cute. Maybe cute's not the right word, but I just really want to see more of Delalue in this book. I like him for some reason. Drag me. But then what Delalue and Warner talk about during that breakfast meeting shook my world once again. Anderson's belongings and files that they found. Oh lord, I am not ready. I've thought about the fact that Juliet now takes over his place. She's obviously gonna have to learn the statistics and what's been happening around the country, but I didn't really ever think about the fact that there would be personal items that Warner would want to potentially hide from Juliet. The fact that there's Anderson's journals, like private journals. I've said, like, passingly, because I knew it wasn't going to happen, like, oh, I would love to know more Anderson backstory and Anderson novella. Like, how did he get to the point of that cruelty? And there's still more information about him that we have to know, such as why is he with Adam's mother? What was the entire deal with him and Layla? Like, why is he so abusive to Warner and Adam? What went wrong? And we get his journals. This is just, like, everything I've wanted is being fulfilled. Not everything, but like things that I've thought about for years are coming to light in this book, and I'm just freaking out that we're getting all this information that I never thought I would ever see, and I could cry. I'm so overwhelmed by how much I'm just like, ah. Now we're gonna get into Oceania. I'm gonna preface this by saying, remember when I said there's a lot about Warner that we learned that I had completely not even thought about? One of them is the fact that he knows all these international people and he's traveled there. Something about the fact, like, imagining Warner in South America, like, sipping a cocktail or something. Not a cocktail, he was a child. That's so cool. There's all these little tidbit, like, even though I'm sure when people say they want more information about Warner, they want, like, a huge backstory, but we get this one detail that he's traveled somewhere, and I'm like, but really, one of the things I've always thought about is I want them to travel, Warner and Juliet to travel together. Would that not be so cool? Juliet on an airplane for the first time. I'm getting so off track. I was supposed to be talking about Oceania right now. But basically, my question is, there's so much dark space around Oceania. Who are the people? Because of course the message was so cryptic. We can't wait to see you. And Castle says, not meet you, see you. And Delalue mentions Ibrahim. That could be a mispronunciation of a name. Ibrahim doesn't sound like he'd be from Oceania, so that might be a reference to like the Asian continent. Nevertheless, I want to know about these new international characters, because he says there's people worse than his father that are supreme commanders of other places, and he was friends with the sons and daughters and family of them, and I'm like, why is he dreading so badly these people coming? Were they friends? Are the people that they're gonna meet good people or bad people? If he was friends with them, is that like a real friendship? Do they also protest and hate their parents, or are they like their parents and he was miserable hanging out with them? This also makes me think of the fact that this is inappropriate, we've all theorized, like, was Warner a virgin? And that could be part of this. Like, I don't know how he categorizes like I was a child when I traveled there. That could be 15, that could be 7, but like it might be some information about like did he have a girl beforehand, you know? I'm guessing no, because he always talks about I didn't have a good friend before you, Juliet, and like all that stuff. But I still want to know like what's the tea, what's the hot goss, what's the backstory on all these new characters, because if they're evil then why are they important? Because Todd is saying we have new characters, we're gonna have stories about them, they're gonna be so cool, but then why would she introduce them being a cool thing with backstories if they're bad characters, if they're all just they can't all be villains? But then again, why does he dread meeting them? Why is Warner so intent on hating that they're coming, and he calls it a disgrace and a disregard and they're entitled? I just have so many questions and I don't know. After that, it's literally, I've been recording for 47 minutes. I don't know how long this is gonna end up being, but that is everything that I have to talk about today. That covered 30 pages of a 400-ish page book, so I have no idea what we're gonna do when this actual the entire book comes out and I have to review it. Did I have something in my teeth? No. I was gonna say if that was there the whole video, you're just gonna have to deal with it. I know I just spoke for so long, but if you agree with anything, if you have any new theories, if you want to discuss, I am literally available any time of day or night if you want to send me a message and we can get talking about this. I have 2 months to fill of just sitting around and wondering. I'm gonna be wanting a lot of conversation about this, trust me. Final consensus, if I had to give this sampler of star rating, definite 5 stars. There's parts of it that I think are lacking. Some dialogue I'm like, it doesn't really sound like them. Some dialogue is cliche. Some parts of it I'm not sold on. For instance, I think Kenji in this sampler is really weird. He barely talks, and when he does, it's not his usual sarcastic, funny banter. Like in the first scene, again, it just has that weird quality to it where I'm just like, it doesn't sound, I don't know. Despite all that, I'm staring at this cover like, are you freaking kidding me? It's a book. And that's the thing I'm having to justify is, am I giving it 5 stars because it exists and it's a shattering book, or am I giving it 5 stars because I love it? I genuinely think that this is going in a great direction. It's fulfilling things that I've wondered for years, and I don't doubt that it's going to do justice to the rest of the series based on what I've read so far, even though we might have some character deaths and sad moments. I trust where this is going. I'm already looking forward to the rest of it, and I'm losing my voice because I just want to yell about it from the rooftops. I'm finally done talking about this. Thank you if you've stuck around for the entire video. I have 50 minutes of footage to edit through now. I'm gonna let you go. I'm gonna stop talking. Goodbye.